you smell good food from the catering, and it's sunny outside, and some people take turns, go out on the dock and just get it, take a cigarette. And I know you're not supposed to smoke, so don't.
Oh yeah,
But
no, don't
if
smoke,
you do,
kids. But if you do, smoke the right
no,
ones.
no, no, no.
What's up, man? So Tobias Forge from the band Ghost is on Drinks with Johnny right now. How the hell are you, and where are you at?
I am doing very well. I am in Birmingham, England, and I'm having some coffee.
Nice. I got my mug as well. Cheers to that.
Cheers. We just kicked off our European tour here in England. So we're 3 days in, or 3 shows in.
Yeah, I saw that you guys just did the O2 Arena. Did you have multiple nights there?
No, it's just one.
Just one night. Okay.
Yeah, we're because we did several. We're playing Birmingham tomorrow. We did Manchester, Glasgow. So I think also considering everything that's going on right now in the touring business, I think not a whole lot of bands are doing like
multiple
double nights.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been out, so I can't speak to that yet.
Yeah, but it's been a really nice start. It's really almost surreal. I mean, we just came off of an American tour, so we're not estranged. On the road, that doesn't feel weird, but it's definitely pinches moments when you consider that, wow, there hasn't been a whole lot of shows since the last time we were out. Basically, we did a European tour at the end of 2019, and some of our friends who are really in the music business, they haven't been to a show since we played here last. Which is, that's pretty amazing.
Well, you guys got cut off on your last cycle, right? You guys were in the middle of a cycle when the whole pandemic hit, and you guys had to swerve. I think you were towards the end of it, if I'm not mistaken, but you were a couple years in.
We had actually just finished.
Oh, we did our last show. That was a natural finish. I knew that you guys had finished right before, like in, what was it, like February or something like that, and then obviously everything hit the fan in March.
It was early March. We did our last show in Mexico City.
Mexico City, I love that spot.
So phenomenal, and it was the timing was insanely phenomenal. I mean, we just flew home from the tour, and all of a sudden the world was closing.
Wow. It kind of works out though, right? I don't know about for you, but is that kind of standard for you guys, or for you more specifically? After a cycle, you go home and recharge the battery a little bit before you even start to pick up a guitar or start writing another song?
Usually I'm already a few steps into the production, or the pre-production at least. And that has been the MO for the last 10 years. That 10 years, let's say and this is 2020. For the last 10 years, basically 8 years at that point, it's been just nonstop. Where the last show of the tour cycle has always been, I am always like just going from one Saturday into the Monday into the studio.
God, you're making me feel, Tobias, you're making me feel so lazy now. Cause I'm like, every time I get off the road, I'm like, I need like 2 months just to like recharge the battery before I start picking anything up.
Right. I think, and this is not to, I know that most bands love each other. But I think that regimen, that routine is benefiting from the fact that when we said goodbye everyone in Mexico City in March 2020, it was by like, goodbye everyone, see you in 9 months. You know, I was going to go into to make a record. So when I go from touring into making a record, it's not like we're the same bunch of people going into the studio.
Oh, okay.
So which, you know, I don't know
so
exactly
what you're saying,
how,
so you're saying
how,
your band that you're playing with live is not necessarily the band that you're playing with when you're writing these songs for Ghost or recording with.
no, not at all.
Wow.
And which makes my routine a little bit more doable. I don't know how things are in your band, but I know a lot of bands who sort of need to, you know, they need to have grown up time away from each other, and they need to sort of get inspired and all that stuff. And because the way I do things is not like that, it makes me a little bit more. I seem a little bit more frantic in my work schedule just because I am able to do that. And, you know, once I'm done with a record, you know, I present it to the band and like, here, I hope you like it. And then we start rehearsing, and then we haven't seen each other for quite some time, wow. Which is, it's actually quite reinvigorating, and that makes everyone, obviously this was a little bit of a different period of time because some people had the opportunity to do a little bit of touring or do a few things before we started. But normally one of the benefits is that everybody got to do their thing before we start, you know, because obviously when our tour starts, it takes up an awful lot of time for everyone involved. And in a normal band where everybody, you know, all the stars needs to align and everybody needs to feel it, there will always be a few people in the band who, you know, maybe their hearts and brains are with their new project or the new thing that they want to do. Or so you sort of struggle to keep everyone motivated and happy to be there and all of that. So
yeah, well, you just eliminated all those problems. But you asked real quick, or said you didn't know how we are. I'll just give you a little insight. We are definitely like best friends. We all knew each other before we got in the band together, and grew up in the same neighborhood. Basically, when we get home, we still hang out. Like I'm hanging out literally the next day off the road, or even sometimes that night we're going to dinner together. But we separate the business part of it for a little while. We go like, okay, that was all business. Now we're back to just being friends for a couple months, and then we'll get back to business. You know,
that is phenomenal.
Yeah, you got to be able to separate it a little bit. Like if we're a family, you know, we've been through so much together that like, you know, it's actually really interesting to me that you've been able to continue the career that you've had with the interchangeable parts, right? I mean, how many different band members have you gone through from the studio or stage, or has it been the same different groups the whole time?
How many members? How many stage members? I don't know exactly. 15 maybe.
Wow.
Something like that. But on the recordings, I've used the same drummer for most records. This a guy named Ludwig Kenberg.
Oh, wait, his name is Ludwig, and he plays the drums. Does he play a Ludwig?
Maybe he owns a Ludwig's at home, but on the records he has played different kinds of kits. But he's been drumming on a majority of the records, from the first one to the third one, fourth one, and one of the EPs and stuff in the middle, and but never with us live.
Okay.
So that relationship is sort of one standalone thing, you know, that feels like whenever we get together and we're recording, it feels like a great, you know, here we are again, you know, and that is sort of one thing. And then the live band has always been different.
How do you choose your players then? I mean, like you said, the drummer's been the same, and mixed around. I mean, how many of the instruments are you playing yourself on the record side, and then how do you choose who you're going to take out on these live settings? Or do you have a management team that's bringing you guys and you audition them every time, or what's the process?
I mean, if we were to change anyone now, it would have most likely been on recommendation. Okay. Because there's definitely a combination. In the originally I put together a band together was based more on proximity than ability or professionality, and that will end up being a problem if you're not very lucky and you sort of just end up being Rush, 3 best friends ever, just being the greatest band together as well. But that is not very common.
No, it only happened once on my book.
Right. Yeah. So you're one of the lucky ones.
No, I'm teasing. I tell jokes sometimes, Tobias. That's what I do.
No, I can live with that. No. So, well, basically, what is very important for me nowadays, and I've been trying to do this for the most part. I've always tried to build and to be clear, I mean, I obviously look to the band first, but for me, it's the band is very much the crew is very much an extension of the band, and just overall, I'm very, very picky when it comes to people and attitudes. Amongst the band and the crew, so that we have a very sturdy, friendly, professional team for the most part. I mean, obviously on a big tour like this, where it's like 40 people, and our buses is about 40 people, even more so. And then we have 2 bands with us. Of course, amongst 50, 60 people, I can't curate everyone, of course, but I'm really, really trying to get people that aren't privy to, that sort of, bullying and screaming and being a fucking dick. And
yeah, you just want to create a good environment out there. You just want to create a good ecosystem and a good environment. You as to the best of your ability. I think that's true. You're describing it in a touring aspect, of course, right? But I think that's true for a lot of jobs and environments in the working place. You just want to create like a good vibe, because you're going to get more out of everybody if everyone's in a good space. Like you don't want to wake up and this guy doesn't want to work with this guy because he's in a bad mood. It's like you got to get everybody on the same page, right?
It is very important. I think that both of us know and have seen many bands across the oceans of rock time that have been, a miserable band with a even more miserable crew, right. And everybody just hates their life, hate their job, and that sort of spreads like cancer. And it's very important that, since we're spending so much time not only with each other but also in solitude and away from homes and loved ones and all that, it's important that everybody has, to the best of their ability, some people wants to be alone, but that everybody has a friend, and that you try to keep track of everyone and try to get everyone to understand that if you have a problem, if you feel bad for any reason, even though it might feel unprofessional about speaking about your home problem, just air it, right. Rather than, feeling like shit for 6 weeks and then quit. Or, it's better if you're going through this really wild thing at home, but that's also like a typical thing, on tour. Someone is like,
yeah, there's good days and bad days.
I'm not saying underperforming, but
yeah,
someone is underperforming for 3 weeks and then all of a sudden goes on raging alcoholic fucking nights. And then all of a sudden 1 week later, you get to know that that person is getting a divorce or something that's in the middle of a custody fight. It's like, why didn't you just say that?
Right.
Please.
That's a
that's a good point. That.
Well, yeah. So when you have something personal going on, I mean, that's, you should be able to air it out. But you got to create that environment too, right? Like that's part of creating an environment so everyone feels comfortable enough to say those things, right?
Yes.
The other part of it though is, you were talking about like the environment can be just toxic sometimes, and we've seen it with countless bands and countless artists. I mean, history repeats itself, right? So it's been since the days of early touring in the 40s and 50s. There's always been those groups, and it sucks because it's like, well, then why did you get into this? If you're going to be miserable out here all the time, why are you here? This is not something that you have to do. We're all here by choice at a certain point. No one put a gun to your head and said, go out on the road. Although it's not for everyone, you quickly know if it's for you or not. If you're going to be miserable on the road, then don't be on the fucking road.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, and even before COVID, I definitely had moments where sentiments like those arose, where it's like, come on, like we're living the dream, for lack of a new phrase to come up with, but it's like, this shouldn't be a pain in the ass. This should not be.
It's supposed to be fun.
This should be fun. Everyone paying to see what we're doing thinks that we're having a fucking blast. I mean, I'm saying we as in plural, everyone out on
anyone in the industry that's putting on a show.
So fast forward to now, in this day and age where COVID as what it was is sort of right now behind us and touring is back. One of the biggest hurdles the business is going through right now, except for the, war and costs and all that stuff, is actually all these bands that used to come out, with the incentive of making gobs of money, because that was basically the incentive to get them back on that bus with those four dudes that they didn't like. And now they've sort of window shopped. They've done some window shopping and bid on this tour that has been out on the market, rescheduled again.
Yes.
And then now, as it is actually, you can tour. The problem is that you might not get all that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden,
that's a lot of things that I think you're touching upon something, Tobias. I don't mean to cut you off. I'll let you go in a second, but I think that you're touching upon a point that a lot of the listeners or viewers don't understand is the cost, the added costs that are going into making these tours happen. And it's not like we're just trying to, or any of the acts are just trying to make up that money that they missed for the last 2 years. It's not possible. No one's getting that money that they would have gotten before. And to your point, that's what everyone's realizing. And if you want to get out there and tour, you're not doing it for the money, right, anymore. Like for you guys, it's like, okay, yeah, we gotta pay some bills. It's fine, whatever. But it's not like this exorbitant amount of money. Like once it's all cut down and gets back to the artist at this point, because of the added cost you guys are having to endure right now.
Well, and the problem now is that a lot of these bands that find the bottom line not to be satisfactory, they don't go out and say that, look, we're not making as much money as we wish, so we're going to cancel or we're going to postpone till the stars are aligned and the marketplace looks better. They go out and tell the crowd that, oh, because of safety concerns, we're not touring.
Yeah.
And that is a fucking horrible message to the crowd, to the rest of the business, to everyone that we're all relying on, as in all the promoters and everyone working at the venues, everybody working as vendors, all the crew members, all the busing companies, all the truck companies, all these people who just had their tour canceled just because these 4, 5 dudes, girls, just decided that the money wasn't great.
Right.
And then they go out and tell, oh, by the way, don't even go to shows because it's not safe.
Wow, I didn't even know that was going on. I mean, the first part of it I did, but they're actually going out and telling people not to go. I haven't seen too much of that. That sounds I would not want anything to do with people like that.
It becomes that. That is what it becomes. If one band decides to go and say like, no, because of safety, it's not safe to tour because of COVID. Of course, you're sending a message to the crowd that, oh, maybe it's not. And remember, we have cultivated this agoraphobia and this germophobia now. Right. That is now a big problem. And it takes a lot of courage for a lot of people to go out. It takes a lot of courage for people to go to a show. And when one band go out and say that, oh, we're not going to tour because of safety concerns, because the world is not a safe place because of COVID, it does say to the fan that, oh, maybe that's right. So I shouldn't even go out now.
You're right, though. Like I didn't even realize that is
detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely. That's detrimental to the entire ethos of touring. Like that's so bizarre. I'm I'm glad in a way that you're telling me this for the first time, because I would be going off about it. Now I have to like wrap my head around fucking people saying something stupid like that. It's like, no, don't. Just here's the reality. Don't fake the funk. If you don't want to go out because you're not making the nut that you want, then just come out and say it. No one's going to judge you anymore. That's the thing. Like everybody is got to be real. The one thing I will say, the silver lining of all this fucking social media and everyone having a voice, which is so toxic most of the time, one part of it that I do enjoy is that it's made everyone who understands it just be themselves. You just have to be yourself. You can't fucking fake the funk anymore.
No. I don't know.
I was gonna let you go there for a second, Tobias, but I'll move on.
Right. No, I mean, I think that as you said it, for the most part, it's this megaphone that everyone has in their hands, where they're able to say whatever they want to anyone at any point, and that is definitely a double-edged sword. But I think that as with everything, I think you need to carry a certain amount of responsibility with it, whatever you're doing. And to go back to what we just spoke of, I just think it would be more responsible as a part of the music industry. I know that we're talking a lot of shop here, kids. I'm sorry about that.
No. If they didn't show up to hear about shop, then they didn't show up at all. So we're good.
Right. Yeah. But I have a lot of rum in my coffee, just so you know. So we're partying.
Oh yeah, I've got my coffee is definitely a bit Irish this morning. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah. Mine is Irish, Scottish, and all
of the above. Wait. What do you do with Swedish? What's a Swedish coffee?
A Swedish coffee. That would be. That's just a typical Swedish coffee would probably be just completely black, really strong, poured on to what do you call these? That's a really old, when you poured it out onto
like a little plate?
Tray like that.
A small plate? I don't know. I'm sure there's a real term for it, Tobias, but I'm not that fancy. I don't know what the fuck it's called. I call it a little plate.
There's a Swedish kids movie which takes place in the 1800s, where the dad does that. He pours the coffee out like that and just.
Oh,
I haven't so that's seen like it. An old. No, you can Google it. Emil i Lönneberga.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna have to listen back to this to understand what you just said. But yeah, like I'll check that. Speaking of kids, though, real quick, this is gonna be a fun one. I was listening to you on another podcast the other day in preparations for this chat, because we haven't seen each other in fucking 10 years probably. And you brought up the Shags, and I wanted to thank you, because after that I went and listened to the Shags, and you said that you listened to it with your daughters or daughter. Do you have kids now? I do have kids. I had that back when we were touring as well. But they were small at that point. Now they're 13. They're turning 14 this year. Oh shit! 2 daughters. Yeah. What's the nuclear family look like?
I have a completely nuclear family, actually. I guess we with 1 son and 1 daughter. Ooh. So double whammy. And my daughter likes the Shags.
Dude, the Shags are awesome. I was just listening to it and I was like, what is this? Why do I love it so much? Because I think you touched upon it in this podcast maybe too. You were talking about just music is entertainment, right? Like if as long as it's entertaining, it's doing what it's supposed to do, basically. And although they're not great musicians, I will say though, lyrically speaking, like the philosophy of the world, I believe is the name of the song. And like it was,
the album and the song.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's the album as well. Okay. I'm just getting into the Shags. I apologize to all the Shags out there that love them so much that I don't know enough about yet. The lyrics, though, I was like, okay, grass is greener. Like the philosophy of the world is everybody wants to be somebody else. It's like, well, shit, that's not wrong.
No, but they sort of. They sing about what they see,
right.
The same way that, Bob Dylan would, so it's like.
That's a great analogy. So everyone's going to go back and listen to the Shags and compare it to Bob Dylan.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that, and I don't want to put too many thoughts I don't want to be pass judgment on what you're going to hear. But if you look them up, the Shags, it's definitely a strange experience. And I think that the concept of entertainment or the concept of being entertained is definitely put on the spot there, which I think is very cool because there are numerous records made that are perfectly in tune, very well organized, start to finish, well sort of arranged songs that does nothing. So boring, it means jack shit. And then you have this record that is none of what we just spoke of.
In such a beautiful way, though. In such a beautiful way, though. It's like, I loved it. I loved listening to it. You described it similarly on this other podcast, and I was like, well, now I got to go see what the fuck this is all about. Like, I gotta know what this is. And it's beautiful. It's, like the drums don't make any sense. They're not really drums. I mean, they're the instrument, but they're not really played. The guitars are kind of there. But I will say the vocal melodies and harmony were like kind of on. I was like, okay, how did you make that work? I was actually really intrigued on how you made that chaos work. Not you. I mean, they, obviously.
No, they. I mean, but that is what it feels like. It feels like they just went into a room and picked up instruments for maybe the second time in their life.
Yeah.
Without having heard a single rock and roll tune ever. And they just played whatever came into their heads. And obviously, I don't know if they're just siblings or if they're like twins, triplets or something like that. They look very much alike. But because they seem to have some sort of intuitive thing where despite the chaos that they're sort of playing, they still sort of sing in unison, and these quite hard songs too. I mean, I'm relatively musically. I love
that you're saying you're relatively musical in one of the biggest bands in touring right now. So that's awesome.
but also from from a point of view where if you were to play me a song on a recorded track, if it's like a normal song with a verse and a pre-chorus and a chorus, unless it's like something really proggy or like contains like weird chord changes or very jazzy or something, I can pretty much like after 3 minutes I can just take a guitar and I can play a rough sketch of what the song how it's
okay, so
laid
you are
out
musical.
I'm pretty good at that bit, sort of understanding like, if I hear a typical radio song, I can hear
right.
what the chord sequence
is.
And
for a lot of people, for a lot of people, that would be very foreign. That would be very foreign to a lot of people. Your left side
right.
of the brain thinking there. I love it.
But Shags is hard to comprehend what they're doing sometimes. But they do it in unison and they do it together. So there is this.
Are they recording live? Did they record those live? That's what I want to know. Like, How did they do those
I
in
don't know.
unison? We're gonna have okay.
That's
I'm gonna find out whoever made those records or anyone close to it, Tobias. If you're down, if I do my research and find this and actually am able to reach out to anybody who knows how those recordings were done, would you hop back on and co-host that episode for me?
sure, absolutely. I
We
think
got to
that
get
the
to the bottom
sisters
of
are
that.
still alive.
Well, let's get them on.
I think that the sisters are
talk
still
to
alive.
I'll do my
Yeah,
research.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to try and get them on. Would you want to talk to them, or you want me to relay the message after I talk to them?
I'd love to talk to them. They seem. I mean, they've made. I wonder if they're aware of their legendary status and what they've actually done. And I mean, one thing that they, I guess one of their biggest recognitions was the fact that Kurt Cobain was such a fan of theirs.
Oh, really? I see. Again, I didn't know any. I have not heard of this band at all, or this recording act, whatever the fuck you want to call it, at all, until I was doing research for this episode. So I was like, okay, this is fucking awesome. I'm such a fan already. I've heard like 3 songs. And I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome. There's another one that had such a positive message. All you kids at home, you should go listen to the Shags sing about their parents and why they are the best, and they care for you more than anyone else. Because that was one of the messages I got away from that one.
Good. Good. No, but I love to talk about them, and especially with them or anyone who has any sort of knowledge. The only thing I know about the record is basically what it says on the sleeve, and that's basically that these girls were playing.
Wait, you actually have a record? You have a record of this? You have a?
Yes, yeah. I don't have the actual original one. Because the story goes, from what I gather, what I remember in my head at least, is that these 3 girls were siblings and they liked to play music, and their father sponsored a recording. And that's basically what it sounds like. It sounds like he just brought them into, the equivalent of Sun Records in town,
Right.
pay, $10 per song or something. And just like, there you go. And they went out with a record on the, 4 hours later. And then he pressed it as a record that's around, that has been pressed for, I don't know exactly how many copies, but I would assume it would be 500 to 1,000 copies or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you find
something
ever,
small,
if you,
something small
like that, if you ever found the original, it's a very pricey record. It's a very rare record, but it's out there. You can find it.
Wow.
However, it was repressed. The original is from 1969, I believe.
Yeah, 69. And that's what I saw on Apple Music when I was listening to it. So.
Yeah, and the repressing is from 1980, I believe. So the 1981 is the one that's pretty easy to find. That will set you, it would cost you $30 or something like that. It's not a really hard record to find, and that would be the edition that sort of brought them out to all the indie. The re-release would definitely be the record that all the Michael Stipes and Kurt Cobains and all Thurston Moore's got in the 80s. And then because it does, if you like Sonic Youth, it's sort of in the same,
it is
sort of noisy sort of pop realm,
but from the 60s, but from the late 60s.
But from late 60s with the band that seems
we're getting a little
like
freeze frame.
Never heard
Got
anything.
A little freeze frame again there.
Oh, sorry about that.
You don't need to apologize. It happens. We'll get through it. So, are you a record collector? Do you collect vinyl? Because it sounds like you have a pretty good knowledge of these pressings.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, generally, I am a record collector. I know quite a lot about records. I have friends who know more, so I always sort of place myself a little bit like, I have a great record collection, but not the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot, but not most. there are a lot of things about typical collecting things that the collector's items that I definitely need to triple check every time. Some people know every pressing of the Beatles and Stones and all those sort of major rock bands. That's really hard to remember all these, if it's a second, third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth pressing of 1966,
right.
or if it's like there's so many. If you go down the well of classic rock, there's definitely a whole lot of things you need to know. Whereas a lot of the things that I've collected over the years has also been, extreme metal, death metal, black metal, and stuff like that. And then it's very simple. It's just like one original pressing from 1989, right. And then there's the repressing from 1980, from 2000, and yeah.
Which actually keeps them pretty rare. Like keeps them pretty rare though too, right? Because you're not probably going to get a second pressing of a lot of those things.
No, I'm also, and I'm pretty, when it comes to metal, I'm very sort of anal. I only sort of like old, especially when it comes to extreme metal, death metal, black metal, trash metal, all that stuff. It's just the 80s stuff. Well, until like the early 90s, and then after, like, my cutoff point is around 1994, and then after that I'm pretty much like, ugh, I just don't like
that is
most
so
of it after
funny.
that.
That is so funny. I very much agree with you. I think that most of this will be funny for a lot of listeners to hear us talk about, but I feel like most of good metal was already done. Like the way that they did it, it's kind of like saying the Beatles already did it, right? Like they already did like Metallica already made thrash so fucking amazing in the 80s. And then they went and polished it for the Black Album. This sound has already been done, and it's been done to perfection in those eras that you're talking about. So what do you do now? You do something like Ghost is doing, like what you're doing. It's complete. You're taking aspects of it, but it's a whole new genre, in my opinion. I've always loved what you do because it sounds completely fresh. I hear, between you and I and probably a lot of other people who are in the music industry, I hear where your inspirations come from. I hear those riffs. I know what that is, but you do such a great spin on it that it creates it to be this absolutely new thing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's Ghost has always been like a mix-up of, it's like a mixtape of maybe not my entire record collection, but many of the things that I've held dear over the course of my life.
Right. Well, so what are some of those? What are some of those? I mean, I'm sure you've answered that. I don't mean to be the typical questionnaire here, but like, how big is your record collection, and what are some of your favorite albums in it?
The thing is that I was fortunate to grow up in a home where, it's a complicated story, but I have had a totality of 6 siblings. I have 4 now. 2 of them are dead, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's a mixed bag of. I have 2 younger siblings, so a little brother and a little sister, who's 35 and 30. So it's like they're
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you're older than that?
Yes, I am.
Wow.
I'm 41.
You're 41? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, kudos to you for looking younger than me, because I'm actually younger than you, but I guarantee you no one would guess that.
Well, thank you. No, but so it's a mixed bag of that, and adopted brothers and sisters, and yeah, it's a complicated story. But my brother who I grew up with was obviously the closest, and because of him and his friends and everything, that sort of youth culture that was ever present. Mm-hmm. And also like the very liberal hand of my mother, who was not privy to censorship, or to she was not a religious woman or anything. So everything was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I was exposed to a lot of music and a lot of TV, a lot of films, and stuff that really had a big impact on me. And also gave me, a lot of, in this case, it turned into inspiration at an early point. And also because of my mom, who was also interested in music. And, obviously she was born in the 40s. So her music style was, jazz and rock and blues from the 50s and 60s, a little bit from the 70s. But so in one ear you had like Beatles, Stones, and Janis Joplin, Hendrix, and Bob Dylan, and all that stuff. And on the other hand, with my brother, he was just a fan of a lot of the things that, that was contemporary at the time, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff that he grew up with. So it was everything from punk with Sex Pistols, Damned, Clash, all that stuff, combined with Rainbow, Motorhead,
Rainbow. I love
and
it. You brought up Rainbow.
like, all that kind of AC/DC,
Mm-hmm.
and also a lot of the at the time radio music that was going on in the 80s.
Well, like the new wave, the pop. I mean, you had what were some of the bands in the '80s that you would be hearing in the pop radio? Like Duran Duran, Michael Jackson was ever present, obviously.
Oh yeah, Prince.
Prince, of course, yeah.
I remember. I have a pretty. The funny thing is, my memory is actually quite full, so I have a hard time getting new things in. But I remember a lot of my childhood. And I remember, how sometimes people are like completely, like everything before a certain age is just like a blank.
Right.
Whereas I have very vivid memories of like our old apartment. I have more memories than I can count in the first apartment where I was born, or where we moved to just after I was born. And we moved out of there for when I was 3 years old.
So that early, okay. You've even got me beat, Tobias, because I had this argument, or not argument, discussion with my wife, who is like how you described a lot of people who have like a blur of their childhood. I'm more like you. I remember like a shit ton from my childhood, and actually more shit came up in the last 2 years that I had forgotten about, to be honest. And it's like it's pretty remarkable to talk to other people who don't remember those things. So I only bring that up and only mean to discuss that a little bit further, because I find that that's very rare when I talk to more and more people, and it's really comforting knowing someone like yourself that has that as well as I do. Of like, yeah, I remember fucking what color the car was when I was being dropped off at kindergarten. I remember the tape deck, what it looked like. I remember the inside. I remember the outside. I remember that there was 3 different cars because one of them was a junker and it was constantly in the fucking, and I was, 5 years old at the time. I remember everything about that. And I think, like, to your point, like, you probably have a lot of those memories as well, right?
I do. And the thing is that most of those memories are anchored to, for lack of a better phrase, like pop cultural happenings.
Right.
I remember certain things because they are framed with whatever was going on TV at the time, or what the parents were talking about, like a certain happening politically or in the world. I remember seeing films. I remember, when they came out. I remember, when my brother and his friends were talking about the new Prince record, which was Purple Rain. And I remember, because also there was one major factor of my upbringing that I really need to underline. Most of you people who are not from Sweden will know about this, but there was this magazine called OK. and which was the fucking greatest magazine ever.
And
And
it's not the OK that we know of today, is it? Isn't there an OK magazine with the exclamation mark on it? Is that the same one? That's not it, right?
no, this was a magazine that came out in Sweden between 1980 and it might have stopped in the 2000s. But it's the when I read it, it was in the 80s up until 1992, maybe 1993. I have a few issues that I might have bought at that time, but um, when I started reading it, it was when my brother had it at home, and then I, bought every issue. I think it was what do you call it, bi-weekly, right? Like it came out every other week or something like that.
Yeah, bi-weekly. That would
And
be
it was
bi-weekly,
just,
yeah.
it's just like this fantastic cultural uh, magazine that sort of encapsulated everything that was going on at the time if you were a teenager. So,
and so what were
if
some
you
of the
would,
what were some of the issues that you can remember right now that were like standouts to you?
well, I was always my favorite thing in the world when I was a kid that my brother sort of brought home, even though it wasn't his favorite thing, but he liked it, was the heavy metal part of everything. I always liked heavy metal. I remember the first record he gave to me was technically it was Love Gun by Kiss.
Nice.
But I remember he came home with Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry, and
Nice.
he sort of gave that to me because I liked it even more.
That's
And
rad.
and I remember he liked Wasp. He bought it. He actually won a competition in OK Magazine where he got a Wasp record. So in one, if
Wait, I'm
anyone
sorry.
were
Your brother won a competition in this magazine that you loved.
yeah, so there's one issue of that magazine where it says Sebastian Forge, a winner of the Wasp competition in 1984.
Year I was
And
born. Great year.
yeah, are you born in 1984?
I was born in 1984. Yeah.
Okay. And Motley Crue was also huge at the time. It was like Shout at the Devil was also like one of my favorite records. So that was my big introductory year that I remember very actually vividly to whatever extent you can remember things when you were 3 years old. But I remember that, the power of 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 those bands, how they made me feel, and that was always my thing. And whenever he came home with a new issue of OK, I always got the posters that had hard rock and heavy metal stuff on it because he wasn't like a poster person that I was. He had maybe a few posters, but he always gave me
were
every
your walls in your room just covered with all these posters? Then is that
completely.
Awesome.
I had all the and that's what my room looked like up until I was 20 and moved away from home. I had posters everywhere.
Do you still have any of them? Like, did your mom keep? I'm asking this for myself. I had posters and pictures up on my walls like crazy as you did, and I'm
Yes.
regretting now that like my mom, like when I moved out, was like, "Oh, do you want me to save any of these?" And I think I told her no, but I think she did anyway. I need to ask her if I could have some of them back.
I have almost everything I've ever had. I'm a complete hoarder. I am very much some of the stuff that I had when I was really little, I've had to find again over the years, like better copies of, because I know that I had them and they, over the course of moving them around or moving, they got trashed. But, OK posters, they're not too hard to get. A little bit later, and this is quite weird because we weren't tremendously well off at all. But in the later 80s, I discovered Metal Hammer, and you could buy import issues. And even before I could read English, I sort of saved up and bought Metal Hammer magazines just because I wanted the posters. But I couldn't read them. I sort of tried to learn how, but they were also, a lot of them, some of them were actually in German. I don't know German to this day, but a lot of them were written in pretty it's very British English.
Right. Well,
Very
which is
hard to
very
understand.
cheeky. It's very cheeky anyway. You should just learn American English. It's way more chill.
Yeah. So I struggled to read that even later, a lot of that. But I sort of sat there and looked through the pictures, and I found a lot of bands that I liked through there, and all those posters that I got from those magazines. And
Wait,
yeah.
so obviously you born and raised in Sweden, and you just touched upon you didn't. When did you learn rather to read English, and when did you start learning English? Because it's always been something that I'm very curious about. As an American, like you kind of learn a few things, like they have extra classes, and like a very small amount of people actually learn it. But I've always been told rather that every other country is learning English, and I'm not sure that I believe that. I just want to know when it was that became part of your curricular.
It becomes a part of your curricular, and I think it changed now because my kids are in school. We started learning in fourth grade. I think that they started learning in third now. My kids spoke, especially my son, was actually quite fluent in English by the time he started learning in school. I know that this is how my memory works, so bear with me.
Okay,
I know that I was in Greece with my mom and brother in 1987. At the time I was 6 years old. I know I was struggling with English at the time, but I could make myself sort of understood because I went around and I know that I sort of spoke just about enough to sort of make myself understood. But I know that when I was 10, I was someplace, we were in Spain. I knew I spoke English at the time because I was playing with English kids, or American, maybe they were. Mm-hmm. And one of my best friends when I was in third grade was actually American. His name was Kyle.
Shout out to Kyle.
Kyle Williams.
Do you still, are you still in contact with this Kyle?
No, unfortunately not.
But you do have that memory that you remember who your best friend. I have a best friend that was in kindergarten to show that memory as well. Kent Morey. Shout out to Kent Morey as well.
Yeah,
not in contact.
Kyle Williams, if you're hearing this, yeah, hi.
Yeah, we'll just put that up. That's going to be the clip out for social media. How about that?
Yeah. No, but he should be. I think, yeah, about my age now.
Yeah. Well, he would be about your age.
California.
He lived in California. Well, hey, dude. By the way, I as a side note. Your entire story that I'm hearing right now, I don't know if you realize it yet, but you just became my best friend because your story is so similar to mine with like having older siblings that brought you music and stuff. Like when you're describing some of those albums, I had those on tape cassette from my brother who had moved on from metal and became a big pop fan. So I had all of his old records. My record collection is full of my grandfather's jazz and classical stuff mixed in with my mother and father's rock world and pop world that's in there. And I have you can't see it now, but there's this whole fucking thing over here that has a shit ton of records over here, and none of them which I purchased myself, which I love. But anyways, I digress. I have to ask about your brother though one last time though, because you said he won a Wasp competition. What is this? How do you win a Wasp competition? What is that competition like?
In that magazine, it was there was magazines. There were competitions and lotteries and all that stuff all the time because they were. But
how do you win that? What's the competition? I guess is more or less is what I'm asking. Like, what
you wrote a letter. You wrote a letter. It was probably write us a list of something or send us the right answer to this question. You remember this is 1984,
right?
Everything was snail mail. Everything was you wrote a letter, posted it, stamp, send, and then in this case it was probably what's the name of Blackie Lawless. How do you spell his last name or something? I don't remember. I have the magazine. If I were home right now, I could probably check whatever it was. I can just check the previous number and see what the, but I don't remember exactly what the actual competition was about. And then you had a ton of, 14-year-olds that sent in like, his name is Michael Lawless or something like that, and it's spelled like this. And
okay, so it's much like the competitions we have today, but it just takes a little longer. It's like, can you answer that? And then, as you and I know, when we do or contests for fans and stuff, and then you just like swipe through and go like, all right, you.
Yeah, and it's probably because of this is how cool OK was. It was probably a question like, they have a song called Animal Bleep Like the Beast. What is the word underneath the bleep? And all the kids were like, fuck. Because they were all about, this is the thing. If you picked up an issue from like 1986, it would be like, remember the series V? That would be like the front cover. And then you would open it up and it would be like Michael J. Fox, At Home with Michael J. Fox. And then you would turn, it would be a big Bon Jovi spread. And then you would turn, it would be like, oh, here's this new band from the US. They're making headways, Metallica. And then from Germany, this other little band called Halloween or Creator, like something like that. And then the
Halloween.
Next page would be,
I'm jealous that you guys got Halloween early, because I didn't get Halloween till much later. It didn't make it across the pond until much later than that.
Right. No, obviously they were German. Thrash and all that stuff was big in Europe. But and the next page, and this is where it got really funny for us really young readers. It would be a big, topless Samantha Fox reportage. And
wait. Okay, now I need to see more of these OK magazines, because now I'm thinking about like it was like like pop culture meets Playboy is what you're describing to me now.
That's pretty much what it was.
How is this not a magazine anymore? I mean, well, no one's doing paper anymore. But how is that? We need to resurrect this.
This magazine would have been canceled immediately. Unfortunately, I mean, I unfortunately I must say that this is one of where, if you read it now, there's definitely like elements that was like.
Did you ever read Mad Magazine? Did you ever see Mad Magazine out there?
Yes.
So, is it similar?
I was never as similar, but this was more like a tabloid cross section of what was going on in pop culture.
Not as much comedy.
No.
Okay.
It was there was a lot of comedy, and everything was sort of written tongue in cheek, and very tabloid-esque. So a lot of the reportages would be about, a lot of reports would be about like Rob Lowe. Here is his new love, and here are pictures of his other conquerings, and then it would be and there would be pictures of this, that, and the other, and but that was definitely like the source, back then, where they would be like, this is the Madonna that right now, and it's like 1988,
right?
But this is what she looked like 10 years ago, and it would be her like nudes.
Oh my God, this is a brilliant magazine. That was in the picture. It does not work. I mean, I don't even think that works 10 years ago, let alone today. Like that's that's some next level shit. I love it. You got to show me sometime in our passings. I got to see more of this magazine, because I'm fucking in love with it already. Speaking of our kinships, I have my grandfather has a collection of Playboys. My late grandfather, he has Playboys from the 60s that I inherited, that like are just like, I have a box of fucking all the magazines from like the 60s all the way through the 90s. I mean, it's like, I just have them. Like, you don't look, I mean, now with the internet, you don't really look at them the same way. Now I look at them like fucking just nostalgia. I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing that this happened in life. Like, this was the pop culture.
Now you're the one cutting out. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just talking about Playboys and,
Yeah, and I must say that just to be clear to anyone listening, the major amazement about that, you know, magazine was not necessarily the amount of nudity and the explicit nature of it. It was the fact that it was so uncensored, and the mixture of everything that you could read about a band. Like, one of the reasons why I was such a young devotee of the band Candlemass, who are now obviously like close friends of mine, some of my best friends ever. But I became a fan of Candlemass already in like late 80s because they were in OK. That's why I know now that they were in OK, because they knew one of the photographers working for OK. So, but that's how broad that magazine were. They would cover everything from Alphaville and Aha and all that stuff that was like completely like the biggest mainstream stuff, but down to anything local metal. And they would do like, they had like a black metal special, and also like in 1984 with Merciful Fate and Venom and Slayer and
seems like a very eclectic magazine.
It was the fucking greatest. And I must say that if anyone would love to have like a, as I said, like a cross section of all those cultural things that I was talking about, look in OK. Have a look in that. That's basically my childhood.
And everyone, go read it for the articles, not the pictures, right?
Not the pictures. Those are not OK. not nowadays. They're not OK.
Yeah. Oh, the magazine would be called Not OK now. Oh, let's start a new magazine, Tobias. We'll call it Not OK, and we'll put all that shit in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, I got it.
But as a
No, I was gonna say we only have so much time. I can't wait to hang with you in person again, because I know that's gonna happen. But before I send you off and stuff, there are some other things that I had to talk about. You talk about the entertainment value of music, and it is just being, you have whatever you want to listen to, right? It's all eclectic. It's all, if it entertains you, it's doing its job, right? To that point, though, what are some of the other things that entertain you? We talked about the magazines. We brushed upon a little bit of movies there, and I know you're a horror fan, but I also know, like me, you're a guy who really enjoys comedy, and a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think that of you or I. It's like, oh, it's all doom and gloom. That's how we live our lives. It's not at all, but, we like that imagery. What are some of your favorite fucking comedies? And I mean, they could be the satire comedies, the Wes Andersons of the world. I consider that straight comedy. A lot of people would say that it's mixed genres and whatever. I'm like, that's comedy to me. So what are some of the comedies you enjoy?
I mean, classic stuff is again, I mean, it's not even very eclectic. If you just go back to the 80s, a lot of the things that I grew up on were, a lot of that sort of Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor stuff has had a tremendous effect on me, and it influenced me a lot.
Their movies or their stand-up, or both?
No, but both. I mean, Raw was like fucking classic.
Dude, anyone who's like just born now goes back and watches Raw, don't understand it, but like that shit was fucking fire. Like, it's so good.
I loved it. And I mean, obviously now in the modern day, you're sort of like, you're that's supposed to, I don't know what to,
I don't mean to derail this part of it, but I really hope,
for anyone, but
I don't mean to derail this, but I have to speak on that real quick. I really hope that we're getting back to a point when not everyone gets canceled or deleted or whatever. Like, cause we have to, as a society, get past that. Like, I understand everyone can be offended, and I don't mean anything like that, but we got to have thicker skin, man. You got to be able to understand when there's a joke and when there's not. Like, this understanding of like, oh, they said something, and that's who they are and how they're. Dude, if I fucking walked around with a camera and a videotape of anybody in this fucking world and just put out snippets of what they fucking said, we'd all look horrible. So stop like pretending like you've never said anything bad. I'm talking to you on fucking social media, by the way. Stop pretending like you've never said anything bad in your life. Like, you don't need to cancel everyone. You don't need to fucking do this. Comedians are allowed to make jokes. If they can't make racy jokes, then fuck. What is comedy? That, to me, that's what comedy is. Like, how can you be funny? It's like the South Park fucking thing, judging forward of what's his name, Jimmy, because he's got the safe comedy. It's like, safe comedy. What is that? That's not comedy anymore. The whole point of it is to point out the stupid shit that we fucking do, people.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to really have a straight line there because, as I said, I grew up in a very mixed bag of a lot of things that might have aged poorly.
Right.
And I guess Raw would be one of those that would be looked upon with judgment now. But I loved it. So stuff like that. But a lot of the comedic groups of people that I liked would, obviously I grew up with Monty Python. And,
the Holy Grail. What a great fucking movie that one was.
And Peter Sellers,
nice.
Pink Panther, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
James Bond later in his life. He actually got to play Q.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Chevy Chase,
dude. Oh, come on, man.
Chevy Cheese. I was combining that with John Cleese. John Cleese stuff.
You just made a meld of a perfect actor comedian right there.
Chevy Cheese. Yeah. I can even go on a long tangent why I think that Benny Hill was a fucking genius, but people just remember his.
You're not allowed, because you're not allowed to like him. Exactly, you're not allowed to like that scene, but that scene was iconic. It was so iconic that that happened in the 70s when you and I were probably watching it in the 80s. That was all syndication. It was that popular that they had syndication, and people were fucking paying money to see Benny Hill.
But the problem is that people just remember him chasing girls, and that was not the funny. That's not where he was the funniest. When he was most brilliant was when he was doing songs or when he was doing skits, and he did a lot of trick filming that was really funny, and I think that a lot of those things are things that I treasure and that really influenced me, and I have always been a very laughing person, if you will. I've always had a laugh is always accessible for me. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it, humoring even the sad things in life and all that. And so just to sort of grasp back at where you started, although that both of our bands are sort of embracing the doom and gloom of the darker forces of nature, I guess, darker forces of the world and the life. I'm actually a quite joyous person, and I've always been a very, very big fan of comedy and just humor in general. My favorite comedy outlets right now, and has been for the last 10 years, is actually a Swedish artist called Jan Stenmark. That's the thing. And it's so sad that he hasn't sort of reached beyond the borders of Sweden, because his art is basically, I don't know if there's anything that's translated. His style is basically, he takes an old picture from some sort of catalog from the 1950s of someone, like a woman who's like doing that, and then there's a funny line underneath that completely makes the picture be so hysterical.
So he's like memeing. He's like memeing on stuff. It sounds.
Yeah, and every year he releases a book filled with these memes, basically.
Okay. And
every time I read almost anything that he's ever done, he's been active for 30 years. Shit, everything. Man. If I start reading his stuff or looking at his pictures, it gives me it literally pains my side, because it's like I can't stop laughing. So early on, when I didn't have a driver's license and I was still sort of commuting and doing things like that, it was almost like a rule. Never buy one of his books or start reading it at the subway, because I will start laughing so hard that I'm going to make an ass of myself. So you can check it out.
I would love to see you reading one of those. I'm sorry, say
Jan.
Jan.
So it's Jan, Jan, and then Stenmark, as our old slalom skier.
Okay.
Ingmar Stenmark. 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 Stenmark.
So in post on the video right now, not for those on the audio, but in post in the video, I'm just gonna have it. We're gonna spell it out and fucking put a link to it, because I gotta check this out too. But what I really want to see though is when we were on tour together with the Deftones in the States. I want to see your original Pope and skeleton face cracking up to this by the subway, because now I just like you put that image in my head. Let's go back to a little bit of that though. Like I apologize for trying to be humorous there, but let's get back to that time. What was it like for you? Because I remember the first time I met you was actually before that tour started. You guys did it was somewhere in LA and on the Strip. You guys did one of your shows, and Tom Whalley and Andy Oliphant, who were the original people that signed Avenged to Warner Brothers, and still very good friends of ours, were the ones that told us come check out this band Ghost. And later on, we would tour together. I also urinated in the bathroom next to Dave Grohl, but didn't have the balls to say hi to him. But I said hi to you after the show, and dude, from that point on, like from that first record, I remember we were listening to it, or at least I was going up and recording the Nightmare record, and it was like it was brand new to me. It was like this really cool thing. We were involved with, we had like friends in the industry and stuff. And man, how was it like for you the first time you started touring in the States after being, I mean, whatever it was before, you're just a fan of music and stuff, and then now you're touring and you're making deals with guys like Tom Whalley and Andy Oliphant?
In a way, I felt like I had prepared myself for that my whole life, because I was always so dead set on touring, and I knew that, kind of like, I don't know, if you know, back a few hundred years ago when some kids wanted to be pirates, they just knew that they had sea legs before they even been on a boat.
Right.
And then I had a similar feeling about being on tour. I just knew that was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to be on a stage, and I wanted to live that sort of lifestyle. And you know, for as long as I've been able to read, I've read biographies of bands, and, you know, whatever, you know, back then, this is, you know, late 80s, early 90s, obviously there weren't it wasn't like the same amount of books out, and there weren't the same amount of films about bands out at that time, but I saw most of what was available. So I learned a lot of how the business, not business, but how it works, what it's like being in the band. At least I got a gist of it just from reading books. So like from the controversial ones to the ones that are a little bit more boring and a little bit more factual. So by the time that I, you know, finally sort of started touching upon, you know, any band that was sort of doing any business, it felt like I was already like, I know this. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't take good advice.
No, of course.
I mean, a lot of our as most careers, is greatly aided by managers and assistants and A&R people and all these people working together. But at least I was privy, and I knew what kind of components you need in order to do this. And I also knew that in order to become a successful artist, one thing you need to love is to tour.
Yeah.
unless you're Adele, who's like the one of the few artists in the world that has been able to do her career without touring a whole hell of a lot. You need to tour, and I think that that is one thing that a lot of when you're a pop
At
artist or
least
you're
today,
just
at least today, we need to tour. I'll talk to you off camera about how we can figure out how we don't have to tour as much. We'll discuss that later.
right, right. Well, I love to tour, so it's like, and
I love
I've
to tour
always
as
sort of
well.
felt
I'm
that.
not poo pooing tour at all. Just yeah.
And the thing is that what I also noticed was that as much as I've been a fan of having to work with just being aesthetic and create stuff. I really like the I try to, it's like I compare what we do being in bands. We create stuff and then we go on and repeat it. It's very similar to being a architect, but also a construction worker or a carpenter. So you do a creative bit of the job. That's to draw the house and get all the creative bits. But then you also have to like do a lot of permits. You have to change shit in
The
order because
logistics
the
of it
permit
all.
didn't. Yeah, there's a ton of logistics, and then comes the actual chore of physically putting the shit together, which is touring. Touring is very creative, but I
It
knew.
can be when you do it your way. You guys do a great job of touring creatively. Your show, by the way, I've seen pictures of it recently, and it's grown quite a bit. But even from day one, when we were out on the road together, like I said, 10 years ago, whatever it was, I was such a big fan of the way that you put on a show. Like it was like, oh my god, this is different but theatrical at the same way. Like we have our theatrics, if I could say the word, in our own respect, but like you do it in a very cool imagery. Like it's very metal. I don't even know how else to describe it. I just remember watching you guys for the first time and I was like, this is going to be huge. Anyone who ever walks into a room and sees a concert like this, they're walking away with a great memory.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's definitely what we try to do, and still to this day, it feels like we're trying to achieve the same thing. And that's what I that keeps on inspiring me, because it's like my to-do list of things that I want to do, and it's so long. I am still so far away from sort of that achieving, like the point where I feel like we've done everything. And so therefore sometimes I do, relate to some people that you might know of, that, or some people that you might know who are, into, starting a restaurant, and then they start another restaurant with a new concept, and then they do that, and then they just keep on building, or building houses that they refurbish and sell, and then they do the next one, and you're never really done, because each project that you do sort of inspire you to do the next one.
Right.
And I like that. I like the idea of never really being done.
Well, that's just life. You're just talking about life right there, Tobias. Like creatively, whatever. Like that's a part of life, is to never be done. What are you supposed? When you're done is when we move on to whatever the fucking next phase of existence is, or maybe it's non-existence. Whatever. I'm not going to pretend to know anything, but I will say,
Right.
like, all I know is what I got right now, and until then, I'm going to keep working on shit.
I think that some of the things that we've touched upon now is things that some people who wants to do music gets a little bit of a shock when they actually turn into music as professional entertainment music. That, I didn't think it was going to be this repetitive. I didn't think that it was going to be just repeating the same shit all the time. I thought, it's going to be like, this, that, and the other. I can just, or you just reach a level where you're okay, now I'm famous. Now I want to do something else.
Getting famous is easy. Keeping fame is very hard. Like they make the
Right.
analogy, and
If that is your
if that's what you want to do, right?
silver lining of wanting to do this, that's one thing. But I think and I think that can be the letdown sometimes. You know,
Right.
For the longest time in my life,
Well, to your point,
all I wanted to be was actually just a professional musician that didn't have to go to a regular workplace.
right?
I just wanted to be able to sort of be free and just do what I wanted. But I know some people that are in that position that haven't had a normal job for 20 years that are miserable being on tour, as we spoke of, that where this conversation started.
Yeah.
Because they don't like the repetitiveness of it's all about like the lack of purpose. It's like with anyone, be it an aesthetic person or someone who's more into normal things, whatever. It's all about feeling purpose and, you know, being content and feeling, you know, the equal amounts of mental stimulation as you get physical stimulation, because one, you can't really exist without the other, and all those things. And also to mix them up with, I don't think about ghosts all the time. What, you know,
no, you got kids, you got a family. Like that's not 100% every day. I mean, it's
no.
And maybe it's 100% every day in the back of your mind because it's a part of your brain and it's a part of who you are, but it doesn't mean that that's your constant thought process every day when you wake up in the morning, right?
No, and what I've come to learn is that the joy and the reaping of everything that I've achieved and all these things that I have and all these opportunities that I have is very much like, it's just a constant, you never reach that sort of plateau where everything is just, okay, everything is perfect.
No, you never do.
You have moments.
And I think that's every walk in life though, Tobias. Tobias, every walk in life is like that. Everyone's trying to achieve this, whatever it is that they do, they try to achieve this level of where, oh, I made it. Now I get to like relax. It's like, you get to relax when you're gone. That's when you get to relax. Like you don't like,
yeah.
If you're true about your life and to your point of, you know, there's people who chase the money or anything like that. It's like, you're not chasing the money. I'm not chasing. We do this because we love it. And this is what we were put on this planet at this moment to do. It's not, I mean, of course we enjoy the fruits of our labor. Don't get me wrong. But if those fruits weren't there, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would still be doing what I do.
Yeah, well, the thing is that one thing, and with this, this might sound weird and strange for anyone who's not in the music business, but also going back to what we just spoke of in the beginning of the conversation, like in a climate like this, when most people in our business have not been on tour for a long time, one thing that I find extreme gratitude and what I can find extreme balanced joy of experiencing is coming into the venue in the morning and seeing 40 people who are actually happy about being out working.
Fuck yeah.
They're happy about doing what they are good at, because many of them are not good at a lot of the normal things that is on, you know, the menu of life.
Right.
But they're really good carpenters of doing stage stuff, stage carpeting. They might be really good at teching lights. They're really good at pyrotechnics and a lot of these things that they couldn't do for 2 years. And I love the fact that we're out doing that and people feel a sense of purpose, you know? And that's where that's where, I mean, this might sound like, so the fuck what? But when that happens, when you feel that and you sort of feel that, wow, we're really here today. Everybody's happy, content. You smell good food from the catering and it's sunny outside and some people take turns, go out on the dock and just get it, you know, take a cigarette and I know you're not supposed to smoke, so don't.
Oh yeah, no, don't smoke, kids. But if you do, smoke the right ones.
No. No. So yeah, so I'm just saying that stuff like that is something that I've been really, you know, with age also, I think that I have moments like that where I occasionally stop from dreaming about something in the past or something that's going to happen in the future. And I just stop and like, wow, this is fucking phenomenal.
Right.
And there's no accidents today, and everybody's here today, and the show is going to be great. And that is phenomenal. And then you get a text from your son or daughter or mom or wife. And it's just like, wow, just now things are really tranquil and cool.
Man.
And moments like that is joy.
Right.
That is happiness.
And we're lucky to even have those moments.
Yes. And I think that is very important, especially if you're a boss of a big team. And that's why I go back to what I just spoke of. Don't fucking window shop tours and then let all those people down just because the bottom line wasn't to your satisfaction.
Right. No, there's a lot more. You brought up a lot more factors, dude. I know you got to go, so I'm going to let you go. This conversation can last another fucking 2 weeks because I'm vibing with you right now and I'm having a wonderful fucking time. Let's continue this conversation in person with or without the cameras and recording down the line when we cross paths. Everyone go check out Ghost. They're on tour right now. The tour's doing great. I know it is. You were at the O2 Arena the other night, so I know that's fucking going great. So I just want to say from me to you, I appreciate your time. I'm so happy for your success. You guys have been doing some fucking great shit for a long time now, and I hope more and more people get to know you and the work that you do.
No, thank you, Johnny. I mean, thank you. You took us out on our first American arena tour.
That's right. Yeah. That was a fucking
I thank you for that.
We didn't even get to get into that too much, which is exactly why we're going to have to do this again sometime. But
yes.
But yes, absolutely. The pleasure was all ours, all mine. I fucking enjoyed every moment of watching you guys play. Great fucking band, great music. We didn't even get into too much of that, but I am a huge fan. I think I made one of my neighbors a fan when I was golfing with him yesterday and listening back to the entire catalog. So again, kudos to you, man. I appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch and do this again very soon.
Yes. Take care of yourself. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Have
See
a good
you
rest
soon.
of the night.
Looking forward to it.
Again, I had to cut it short, but we could have been talking for like another 2 hours easily. There were so many points that I wanted to get back to. Such an interesting dude. So much fun to talk to. Man, I didn't even realize some of this stuff. Even though we toured 10 years ago together, like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, it's a lot of in passing. It's a lot of he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. But when we convene, we can talk. But you don't get a conversation like this from it, right? This isn't something where we sat down just one-on-one and discussed our childhood. And to be honest, I was super not impressed. Impressed is the wrong word. I was super surprised to learn about Tobias's childhood really being similar to mine. And man, I just can't wait to continue this friendship and talk. And shit, man, we're gonna have another one in person. We got to do it. Sorry, guys, it's gonna be in person. And next time, as always, cheers.